Jerry Jones, the longtime owner of the Dallas Cowboys, is undeniably one of the most polarizing figures in all of professional sports. And while some of it comes with the territory of being a very outspoken billionaire, not all the hate that comes his way is necessarily deserved. Sure, he's the guy who fired the only coach to ever don the headset in Dallas before the team ever took the field under Jones's leadership, only to have the team go 1-15 in that first season without the iconic Tom Landry. And of course, publicly, he appears to be a money-grubbing oil tycoon that got rich leveraging loans from his wealthy connections. And sure, if you're an NFL fan that doesn't happen to root for the Dallas Cowboys, it might perturb you that Jones has so much influence on the league. Or you might be annoyed by the role he plays in the Cowboys always being on national television. Okay, maybe I want to backtrack a little bit on the whole he doesn't deserve the hate thing, but that's really not the point of this video. The point is, Jones is an extremely influential and controversial character in the story of the NFL. So much so that almost any folklore that you hear about Jones is at the very least believable, if not actually true. It's to the point that if I told you Jerry Jones uses power, money, and influence to buy a Super Bowl win, you would at least have to think twice. I mean, check out this quote that he gave on his weekly radio show about how badly he wants to end his current Super Bowl drought. "It would be embarrassing," Jones said to 105.3 The Fan. "It would be shocking if you knew the size of the check I would write if it guaranteed me a Super Bowl. And it would be obscene. There's nothing I would not do financially to get a Super Bowl, so that's a given, and that's a real given." Jones could have been referencing all the legitimate money he spends bolstering the Cowboys roster, or the facility, or the coaching staff, but just maybe it was a little Freudian slip, who's to say? So here's the story about the time Jerry Jones might have actually bought a Super Bowl win. What you want to believe is your choice. The year was 1995, and the Dallas Cowboys were a dynasty on the edge of despair. Well, relative despair based on where the Dallas Cowboys standard was in those days. Despite having already won 2 Super Bowl championships in the first half of the decade, things were different now. Jones had a falling out with longtime coach Jimmy Johnson, which culminated in a shocking resignation from Johnson just weeks after winning Super Bowl 28. Jones then brought in longtime friend Barry Switzer to try and prove that he, not Jimmy Johnson, was the mastermind behind the Cowboys dynasty. While the team had a strong season, finishing 12-4, they were dethroned in the NFC Championship game by the 49ers 38-28. This undoubtedly drove Jones mad. Perhaps Jones' only greater motivator than his innate competitive drive is his undying spite. And that is what that 1994 season was for Jones. It was a spite campaign that came up short of the ultimate goal. I say this all to say that heading into the 1995 season, Jerry Jones had his eyes set on recapturing Super Bowl glory, and anything short of that would be a tremendous failure in his eyes. So in true Jerry Jones fashion, he pushed all of his chips into the middle of the table that offseason and brought in all-pro cornerback Deion Sanders from the same 49ers team that had got the better of them the year before. Between prime time and the rest of the talent they had from the previous couple of Super Bowl runs, guys like Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, you know the names, the Cowboys looked poised to contend. The season started off strong as they cruised to a 4-0 start, and the team had a handful of dominant performances too, including a 35-0 shutout of their division rival, the New York Giants, on the road. The boys would finish at 12-4 for the season, which was good enough for the number 1 seed heading into the playoffs. Jerry's plan was starting to come to fruition and looked more and more promising each week, as the Cowboys handily defeated the Philadelphia Eagles 32-11 in the divisional round before beating the Green Bay Packers 39-27 in the NFC Championship game. That brings us to January 28, 1996, the day in question, Super Bowl 30. The Cowboys were matched up with Bill Cowher's AFC Championship Pittsburgh Steelers in a battle of 2 legendary franchises in the NFL. The Steelers had a strong year, but everyone and their mother was backing the Cowboys. Most sportsbooks had them as at least 13-point favorites. It is almost like they knew something was up, or maybe it was because of Dallas's impressive star power, their powerful offensive line, and their playmaking defense. Anyway, the game started off just as Vegas predicted. The Cowboys jumped out to a quick 13-0 lead, a lead that could have quite easily been even bigger if the Steelers hadn't held a couple of big-time goal stands. So why do people think that the fix could have been in for this game if the Cowboys were so dominant? Well, because as the game played out, they really weren't. The Steelers had 10 more first downs than the Cowboys, nearly twice as many rushing yards, and 60 more total yards. Not only that, but they really buckled down after going to the locker room down 13-7 at the half, as they held the Cowboys to just under 70 yards of total offense in the second half. That is a pretty impressive defensive performance, considering all of the Hall of Fame talent the Cowboys featured on offense. This is where the game starts to get a little bit sketchy. You see, the Steelers' defense was pouncing. The offense had scored with just 13 seconds left before the end of the first half to cut their deficit to 13-7, and everyone in the stadium started to get the sense that the Steelers were charging back and the momentum of the game was shifting. It just seemed like one thing was missing. The Steelers quarterback, Neil O'Donnell, whose name should never be mentioned in the Steel City, started to become increasingly erratic. This was very out of character for O'Donnell, who had led the league in interception percentage in 1993 and had only posted one season with an interception percentage above 2.4 at that point in his career. But check out this throw. He is hardly under any pressure and just fires a pass way over his receiver's head in the middle of the field. Not to mention that the receiver hadn't even broken his route yet. You don't even have to look too carefully at the play to realize that not only is the receiver not looking, but there are 5 Cowboy defenders scattered around him. If this were a one-off play, it would probably be a little easier for Steelers fans to stomach, but it would only get worse.
The ball was by him before he had a wink at it.
Dick, if he was looking for it, he wouldn't have caught it. I mean, that baby was gone before he even made the turn.
Midway through the quarter, O'Donnell was leading the offense down the field when the unthinkable happened. He threw an even worse pass than the one we just looked at.
Blitz, O'Donnell over the middle. Intercepted wide open is Larry Brown. No one near him, and Brown takes it inside the 20.
The more you watch this clip, the more it looks like O'Donnell is blatantly throwing the ball straight to the Cowboys defensive back, Larry Brown.
This is Neil O'Donnell's fault.
Larry Brown really does not even cover anybody.
Look at the time he has to throw the ball, and then O'Donnell throws the ball away.
It is an impossibly bad throw. Brown nearly returned the interception to the house, but was barely taken down after a 44-yard return, which put the Cowboys' struggling offense on the Pittsburgh 18-yard line. Now, as a sidebar, I remember this from when I was a kid. My grandmother, Rosa, she got out of her chair, tore a giant poster of Neil O'Donnell off of the wall that she had put up in the living room because she loved him, and then proceeded to step on it in front of all of us. It kind of freaked us out and scarred us for life. Anyways, the announcers literally couldn't believe it. They harped repeatedly on the immense amount of time that the quarterback had to throw and how little Brown had to do on that interception. If you ask them, O'Donnell may as well have just walked over and handed the ball to Brown. The end result was a touchdown drive capped off by a 1-yard Emmitt Smith touchdown run and a 20-7 Dallas Cowboys lead.
Emmitt Smith. Second effort. Is he in? No signal yet. They're marking now. Touchdown.
He's down. That is not a touchdown.
Now, the next portion of the game doesn't necessarily support the theory that O'Donnell was in on the fix, as the Steelers rallied back, scoring 10 unanswered points, and the game sat 20-17. But let me ask you this. If you were throwing a game, wouldn't you want to sprinkle in some good moments? Otherwise, not only would he have risked tanking the value of his next contract, but also the fix would have been painfully apparent. However, as time fell off of the game clock, and the Steelers once again found themselves charging towards a comeback victory, more mayhem struck. Once again, Neil O'Donnell dropped back, had a gaudy amount of time to throw, but turned towards the sidelines and promptly threw it right back to Larry Brown, who this time returned it all the way inside the 10-yard line.
4 linemen and 7 defensive backs. Blitz on. O'Donnell. Intercepted, and Larry Brown has a shot at a touchdown. Brown knocked out of bounds.
This time you can tell that the Cowboys were blitzing, but the line does a great job of picking it up, and none of the pass rushers are particularly close to hitting O'Donnell as he threw the ball.
Brown again, not even near the play. The ball thrown right to him.
But what happened is they blitzed again. The Steelers pick it up, and Larry Brown just stands there.
After the game, when he was questioned on this play, he explained that he was expecting to make an outcut instead of an in-cut there, which is feasible, but the tape is pretty suspect.
Neil O'Donnell really did not have to throw the ball that quick. Had he waited and thrown downfield, it would have been a touchdown.
The Cowboys would once again convert on the short field as Emmitt Smith punched in a 4-yard run for a touchdown. This put the score at 27-17 with less than 4 minutes left on the clock and effectively ended the Steelers' chances at forging a comeback, assuming their quarterback would have even wanted to make a comeback. There was a pretty big blowback afterwards, especially as the Steelers watched Larry Brown earn Super Bowl 30 MVP honors for what many consider to have been the easiest Super Bowl interceptions of all time. Understandably, the post-game comments from one of O'Donnell's teammates were indicative of just how easily those passes were intercepted. All Brown did was stand out there. No MVP award should have been given. Pittsburgh running back Eric Pegram told Sports Illustrated after the game, "It's the first MVP award where the guy didn't earn the thing." What was particularly jarring about O'Donnell's performance was that aside from those insanely bad interceptions, he really didn't play a horrible game. He threw for almost 240 yards, which was a big number for those days, and it was also more than Troy Aikman threw for that night. The offense moved well, the defense was obviously awesome, even with the tough field positions they were repeatedly put into. It was really just those errant interceptions that cost the Steelers that Super Bowl. This victory made the Cowboys Super Bowl champions for the third time in 4 years and vindicated Jerry Jones, who was desperate to win one without Jimmy Johnson. Much of the evidence is circumstantial at best, but boy is the tape ugly. Between that and the public's knowledge of just how badly Jones wanted to win, plus notoriously renegade-esque way that he had chased success his whole life, it led some people to question if Jones had gotten O'Donnell before the game, made him an offer he simply couldn't refuse. To be honest, if it did happen, we'll probably never know for sure, but that would be the story for the ages. Anyway, the aftermath in Dallas wasn't particularly pretty. Super Bowl 30 served as the final Super Bowl victory for the Cowboys dynasty of the 1990s. Dallas would win only one more post-game season until 2009. It might be a little tougher these days, considering how much money today's quarterbacks make, but depending on how much validity you give the whole Jerry Jones paid off Neil O'Donnell premise, another bribe could be something to look out for, as Jerry has been very outspoken about his desire to bring another Super Bowl back to Dallas. It's tough to put anything past Jerry Jones when it comes to what he'd do for just one more ring. If you're not subscribed yet, now's a great time to click the subscribe button down below. If you liked the video, then like the video, we'd really appreciate it. And last but not least, don't forget to tune in to TPS for more cool videos every single day.